We're live from New Delhi. You're watching the India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Coming up in the next hour. Bharat Mobility Global Expo 2024 underway here in New Delhi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address the India's largest and first of its kind mobility exhibition today. US approves plan for a series of strikes on Iranian targets in Syria and Iraq. Defense Secretary says dangerous moment in the West Asia, reiterates avoidance of wider conflict. India set to play the second test match against England. Shubman Gill, Shreyas Iyer in focus as India eyes comeback win in Vizag. And moving on, India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address a program at India's largest and first of its kind mobility exhibition, Bharat Mobility Global Expo 2024 at 4:30 p.m. IST at Bharat Mandapam in the national capital, New Delhi. Bharat Mobility Global Expo 2024 will showcase India's capabilities across the entire mobility and automotive value chains. Also, India is hosting the first ever Bharat Mobility Global Expo 2024 between February 1st to 3rd. Bharat Mobility Global Expo 2024 will showcase India's capabilities across the entire mobility and automotive value chains. The expo will feature exhibitions, conferences, buyer-seller meets, state sessions, road safety pavilion, and also public-centric attractions like go-karting. With over 800 exhibitors from 50-plus countries, the Expo will highlight cutting-edge technologies, sustainable solutions and breakthroughs in mobility. The Expo will feature participation from over 28 vehicle manufacturers, in addition to the presence of more than 600 auto component manufacturers. Over 1,000 brands from over 13 global markets will showcase their complete range of products, technologies and services also at the event. With a focus on new age components, tech future fuels, and a growing EV ecosystem, the Expo also features dedicated exhibitions on automation, urban mobility solutions, EV charging solutions, and more. And the United States on Thursday approved the sale of 31 MQ-9B armed drones to India at an estimated cost of $3.99 billion. The proposed mega drone deal was announced during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Washington in June last year. Under the deal, India will get 31 high-altitude, long-endurance unmanned aerial vehicles, of which the Navy will get 15 Sea Guardian drones, while the Army and the Indian Air Force will get 8 each of the land version. Sky Guardian. The U.S. Defense Security Cooperation Agency in a statement said the proposed sale will support the foreign policy and national security objectives of the United States by helping to strengthen the U.S.-Indian strategic relationship and to improve the security of a major defense partner which continues to be an important force for political stability, peace and economic progress in the Indo-Pacific and South Asia region. A U.S. State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said the drone deal offers significant potential to further advance strategic technology cooperation with India and military cooperation in the region.
So I'll say that generally the U.S. India defense partnership has seen significant growth over the past decade. This is a proposed sale that was announced during Prime Minister Modi's visit last year. We believe it offers significant potential to further advance strategic technology cooperation with India and military cooperation in the region. Of course, Congress plays, as you know, an important role in the U.S. arms transfer process. We routinely consult with members of Congress on the Foreign Affairs Committees before our formal notification so we can address questions that they might have. But I don't have any comment on when that formal notification might take place.
And a high-level Maldivian delegation is in Delhi ahead of core group meeting today. The delegation, comprising both diplomatic and military representatives, is expected to take part in the second core group meeting. The first meeting, high-level core group, was held in Male on January 14th. During the meeting, both sides held discussions on wide-ranging issues related to bilateral cooperation towards identifying steps to enhance the partnership, including expediting the implementation of ongoing development cooperation projects. And another Indian student has been found dead in Cincinnati, U.S. It was the third death of an Indian student in the U.S. within a week. Taking to social media site X, Indian consulate in New York said that the police investigation was underway. It further said that the consulate continues to remain in touch with the family and is extending all possible assistance to them. Earlier, Neil Acharya, an Indian student in the United States studying at Indiana's Purdue University, was found dead on Sunday after he was reported missing. This came after another Indian student named Vikavek Saini was brutally murdered by a homeless drug addict inside a store in Lithuania, Georgia. And on the third day of budget session of Indian Parliament, lawmakers are set to engage in a debate on the motion of thanks to the President's address in both the houses on Friday. Meanwhile, question hour session slated for the first half of the day, followed by discussions on private business from 3:30 p.m. IST in both the houses of Parliament. And for more on this, we have a correspondent, Vikas Sarthi, joining us. Well, Vikas, third day of session today. Lawmakers are set to engage in a debate on the motion of thanks to the President's address. What all is expected?
Right, Lepakshi. So after the 0 hour and the question hour in both the houses, the members will start discussion on the motion of thanks on President's address to the joint sitting of both the houses. And we expect that it takes at least, Lepakshi, 3 to 4 days. So in that discussion, we will again see that the issues related to Indian economy, our development rate, growth rate, GDP figures, all these things will be again discussed by the member of parties. And later on, when this discussion is complete, Prime Minister Narendra Modi will give a detailed reply on all those issues which are going to be raised by opposition MPs. So this whole discussion may take place at least 3 days, since today's private members bill in both the houses. So for the motion of thanks, not much time will be available today itself, but the formal discussion will begin today only, and later on, after the reply of Prime Minister, then we will see the debate and the discussion on the budget speech of Finance Minister. She has made several announcements yesterday. Despite being it's an interim budget, we got to know what is the agenda for the development of Indian economy ahead. So that discussion will take place once Prime Minister give a detailed reply on motion of thanks.
Also, as we know, of course, it is the budget session. What else is lined up? The session is till 9th of February. What else can be expected?
Lepakshi, usually only two debates are part of this first part of a budget session, so not much legislative work other than the discussion on motion of thanks and Finance Minister's budget speech. Not much legislative work is expected, but if there is any urgent bill or any urgent legislative business which government thinks should be introduced in both the houses, then it may bring those legislations. But we have seen in the past, and in fact, Parliamentary Affairs Minister before the starting of this session made it clear that the agenda of this session will be limited only to the budget discussion and the motion of thanks.
All right. Thank you so much, Vikas, for joining us and giving us that information. And moving on, Lakshadweep found a special mention during India's interim budget presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on Thursday. In her speech, the Finance Minister said projects for port connectivity, tourism infrastructure and amenities will be taken up on our islands, including Lakshadweep, to address the emerging fervour for domestic tourism in the country. The cluster of scenic Indian islands located in the Arabian Sea have been getting high strikes on the internet following a recent visit by India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi in January this year. And amidst the political unrest in Indian state of Jharkhand, Champal Soren is set to take oath as the Chief Minister of Jharkhand on Friday. Early on Thursday, Jharkhand governor invited Champal Soren to Raj Bhavan to form the government in the state. Champal Soren is a loyalist of Jharkhand Mukti Morcha leader Hemant Soren. After the oath, he will have to demonstrate his majority in a floor test within the next 10 days. Former Chief Minister of Jharkhand and Jharkhand Mukti Morcha leader Hemant Soren resigned hours before he was sent to one-day judicial custody by a special PMLA court in Ranchi in connection with an alleged land scam case. Soren was arrested on Wednesday night by the Directorate of Enforcement after 6 hours of questioning in the money laundering case linked to the alleged land scam. And now let's take a look at other stories making news today. In the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, large number of devotees flocked to Varanasi to offer prayers. Hindu devotees are performing the ritual of worship in Varanasi's Gyan Vyapi Cellar on the second day after the district court's approval. The basement barricades were opened and people offered prayers. A significant security arrangement has been made in the vicinity to avert any potential disturbances. Indian Coast Guard celebrates its 48th Racing Day in New Delhi. India's Defence Ministry said in a statement that Indian Coast Guard, with 152 ships and 78 aircraft in its arsenal, is on track to achieve its targeted force levels of 200 surface platforms and 100 aircraft by 2030. Under the motto Vayam Rakshama, the Indian Coast Guard has saved over 11,554 lives since its inception. Amid the chilling winters in India, capital city Delhi engulfed in dense fog. On Friday morning, the shallow fog had affected visibility in several areas, which is causing disruptions to flights and train services. According to India Meteorological Department, a layer of fog shrouded isolated areas of Delhi and East Uttar Pradesh, while dense fog was observed in isolated pockets of Haryana, Rajasthan and Jharkhand. The Indian Army rescues a pregnant woman amidst heavy snowfall in Kupwara district of India's Kashmir. The local army unit received a distress call from the husband of a pregnant woman requesting for urgent rescue and medical evacuation of his wife, who was in critical condition. Realizing the critical situation, the Indian rescue team and medicos from army camp immediately responded to the distress call. Pangi Valley, a tribal area of Chamba of Indian state of Himachal Pradesh, receives heavy snowfall. The entire valley has been covered in thick layer of snow. Earlier, the India Meteorological Department issued an orange alert for snowfall at various places in Himachal Pradesh, indicating the possibility of rain also in other parts of the state. And still to come on DD India News Hour. We'll give you an update on Israel-Hamas conflict as Israel shifts focus to Gaza's Rafah city. Meanwhile, Qatar and Hamas hope Hamas will agree to ceasefire. European Union gives nod to extend 50 billion euros in financial assistance for Ukraine. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky welcomes the move. In Brussels, thousands of farmers have taken to the streets to protest rising living costs.
Why is the world preparing for a second Trump presidency? I connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana. Moving on, the U.S. has approved plans for a series of strikes on Iranian targets in Syria and Iraq. It comes after a drone attack killed 3 U.S. soldiers in Jordan close to the Syrian border on Sunday. The U.S. blamed an Iranian-backed terrorist group for the attack. That group, the Islamic Resistance in Iraq, is believed to contain multiple militias that have been armed, funded and trained by Iran's Revolutionary Guards Force. Iran, meanwhile, has denied any role in the attack, which injured 41 other U.S. troops at the military base known as Tower 22. Meanwhile, U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said on Thursday that this was a dangerous moment in the West Asia, but the United States would work to avoid a wider conflict.
So this is a dangerous moment in the Middle East. We will continue to work to avoid a wider conflict in the region. But we will take all necessary actions to defend the United States, our interests, and our people. And we will respond when we choose, where we choose, and how we choose.
And updates on Israel-Hamas conflict now. Israel will shift the focus of its operations to Gaza's Rafah city after claiming to have dismantled Hamas units in Khan Yunis. Rafah is located near the Egypt border. The development comes as Qatari and Egyptian mediators hope for a positive response from Hamas to a fresh proposal for an extended halt in fighting agreed with Israel and the US at talks in Paris last week. The proposal also calls for release of hostages. Meanwhile, Israel's defense minister Yoav Gallant said that the country's troops have killed 10,000 terrorists in Gaza since the start of the conflict with Hamas.
To continue, not to stop it, requires national resilience and determination, and we must preserve until we complete our missions. And it is more difficult for Hamas. Believe me, they don't have weapons, they don't have ammunition. They have 10,000 eliminated terrorists and another 10,000 terrorists who are wounded and not functioning. This is a serious blow that erodes their abilities.
And the US has said that it had very frank conversations with Israeli officials about settler violence in West Bank. This comes after the Biden administration imposed sanctions on 4 Israeli men it accused of being involved in settler violence.
I will say we have had some very frank conversations with them about extremist settler violence. And that includes some very detailed conversations where we have presented cases to the Israeli government, cases of settler violence where we have seen reports and where we have seen documented settler violence and asked them to take action. And we have seen them take some action.
And leaders of the European Union on Thursday unanimously voted in favor of extending 50 billion euros in financial assistance for Ukraine, a decision that was welcomed by Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. The crucial funding was stalled last year when Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban blocked its passage at an EU summit in December. Zelensky said the EU support will help strengthen the long-term economic and financial stability of Ukraine. DD India's Megumi Lim has more from Kyiv.
President Zelensky on Thursday thanked European Council President Charles Michel and EU leaders for establishing the 50 billion euro aid package, which will be provided to Kyiv over the next 4 years. The aid deal, called the Ukraine Facility, was approved during a European Council summit on Thursday.
Today is indeed a very special day. The European Council reconfirmed Europe's unwavering commitment to stand with Ukraine. We all know that Ukraine is fighting for us. So we will support them with the necessary funding and provide them with the much-needed predictability they deserve. So with this agreement, Europe stands united and is well-equipped for the challenges ahead. In other words, today Europe got stronger.
After weeks of concerns that Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban may block its passage again, as he had done in a previous EU summit in December of last year. Now, before Thursday's summit began, EU leaders pressured Orban to lift his block. Now, Orban has for months been calling for the need to review the distribution of funds on an annual basis, which triggered concerns that this could open up the opportunity for the funding to be vetoed by him at a later stage. He had also tried to get the EU to unblock money allocated for Hungary, which has been frozen due to concerns about the country's deteriorating rule of law. Now, EU leaders agreed that the aid package will be discussed yearly and that it will potentially undergo a review in 2 years only if necessary. The news came after officials in Ukraine warned that Kyiv may face an economic crisis if support from the West continued to stall. Although Zelensky said he was grateful for the long-term financial assistance to Kyiv, he also urged EU leaders to send more military aid.
I'm grateful for your decision on the financial instrument for us, for our people, for Ukraine. Ukraine facility with 50 billion euros for a 4-year period. This is a clear signal that Ukraine will withstand and that Europe will withstand. It is also really important that this decision was taken unanimously by all of you, all 27 member states, and it is yet another clear sign of your strong unity and support.
Officials in Ukraine have said that Kyiv is facing a critical shortage of artillery shells, while Moscow's forces continue to fire thousands of shells along the front lines every day. Megumi Lim in Kyiv reporting for DD India.
Well, a Russian strike killed 2 French volunteer aid workers in the southern Ukrainian region of Kherson on Thursday. Kherson Governor Alexander Prokopin said the Russian attack on the town of Berslav killed the 2 French nationals and wounded 3 other foreigners. Prosecutors in the region said Russian forces launched a mass drone attack in the area. A Ukrainian national was also wounded in the strike. Ukrainian troops have since established positions on the eastern bank, but Russian forces continue heavy shelling of other parts of Kherson region from areas they hold on the eastern side. And the International Atomic Energy Agency says that workers from Ukraine's atomic energy operator Energoatom have been barred from the Russian-occupied Zaporizhzhia nuclear plant. Plant is now manned by staff who have taken Russian nationality. IAEA head Rafael Grossi is set to visit the site next week after holding high-level talks in Kyiv. He will raise the crucial issue of staffing at the plant during the visit. As per reports, Russia had been imposing citizenship on the plant's employees and forcing them to sign contracts with Russian-installed operator Rosatom. The plant was taken over by Russian forces in March 2022 and its 6 reactors have been shut down. A United Nations-sized court, the International Court of Justice, will decide if Ukraine's case against Russia, accusing Russia of violating international law by claiming its invasion was a response to an alleged genocide on Friday. Over 24 European states have backed Kyiv by giving formal statements to the court, stressing they believe the case should move forward. The court has already issued emergency measures in March 2022 in the case, ordering Russia to immediately halt its military operations in Ukraine. While the court's rulings are final and legally binding, it has no way to enforce them, and Russia have ignored their orders. Moscow said Ukraine is using the case as a roundabout way to get a ruling on the overall legality of Russia's military action. And thousands of farmers have taken to the streets of Brussels to protest the rising living cost. The protest brought the city to a standstill as protesters clashed with police. DD India's Alex Cardia reports for more.
Well, farmers have been here in the streets of Brussels blocking traffic, blocking most of the main avenues, and they've been here all day outside of the European Parliament. You see they've lit 2 bonfires. Those have been burning all day. These farmers here to express their anger, their frustration with what they say are rising production costs and falling prices for their products. They say that their way of life, their businesses will not be sustainable in the months to come. They will need more support from the government. That is the message from here today. And we heard Ursula von der Leyen, the European Commission President, saying that we hear farmers and we support European farmers, says the European President Commission. She, alongside the Dutch Prime Minister, the Belgian Prime Minister, met with these farming groups, hearing their concerns, hearing their frustrations. But we saw those frustrations boiling over earlier today. Just behind me, we saw some of these farmers clashing with police, throwing bricks at police officers, throwing eggs at the European Parliament building as well, making that anger heard. It's certainly an issue that will be rumbling on in the next few weeks. Of course, European elections expected in June, and we can expect this to be quite a core, quite an important issue as well. So certainly that frustration, that anger expressed by European farmers here in Brussels today and heard by those EU leaders gathered in the city. Alex Cadier in Brussels reporting for DD India.
And on the 12th day of protest blockades, transport and supply routes in Bolivia interrupted. The political standoff has complicated transport routes over land, leading some commuters stranded, and reports of food and fuel shortages in several Bolivian cities. Former President Evo Morales' supporters are calling for judicial elections that were reportedly due last year. It comes after the country's constitutional court ruled the former president could not run for elections in 2025.
Sin embargo, la gente está con más fuerza, con más energía.
And Mali's subdued rally in Bamako on Thursday demonstrated support for the junta's decision to leave ECOWAS. Government officials, soldiers and a small crowd symbolizing solidarity among the three nations attended. The attendance paled compared to previous gatherings, reflecting a mixed public response. The junta leaders assert their stand against what they perceive as ECOWAS's deviation from founding principles and inadequate support against Islamic insurgencies amidst potential economic fallout and growing influence from external powers.
La CEDEAO n'est pas une union monétaire, c'est une union économique.
And today marks 1 year of the massive train derailment near the border of Ohio and Pennsylvania on February 3, 2023, causing a massive fire in the area that spilled toxic chemicals in a small town of roughly 4,700 people. Over the weekend following the derailment, emergency crews evacuated residents from their homes within a mile of the fire. Many in the area complained of headaches and irritated eyes and noted that chickens, fish and other wildlife have died off. Well, streets were empty in Colombia's capital, Bogota, on Thursday as the city went car-free in an effort to curb traffic and air pollution. Only public transport vehicles, such as taxis and buses, were allowed in the capital's roads, following strict instructions. Thursday, car-free days comes a week after the capital was shrouded in smoke from nearby wildfires. Well, Peruvian authorities have reopened the train route to Machu Picchu after an agreement was struck to end protests that had blocked access to the famed Incan site and stranded tourists. The protest began late last week over a new centralized ticketing system, leaving hundreds of tourists unable to reach the ancient ruins high up in the Andes. Protesters said they feared the new electronic ticket sales platform would hurt local businesses by shifting the administration of ticket sales to one private company authorized by the Ministry of Culture. The two sides signed an agreement on Wednesday that will see a transition period to the new platform. And still to come on DD India News Hour. The third edition of the EU Indo-Pacific Ministerial Forum will be held in Brussels. And we'll give you weather updates from across the globe. Also, Ice Palace takes shape from annual New York Winter Carnival.
Why is the world preparing for a second Trump presidency? I connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
Always welcoming. The vibe of Punjab is larger than life. Warm up to grandeur that's beyond compare. And history that's dotted with tales of bravery. Smiling soul of India, where music, art, cuisine and culture comes together to create an unforgettable impression. Punjab is all set to win your hearts with its unique and colorful extravaganza.
Welcome back. You're watching the India News. I'm Lipakshi Khurana, and time now for a quick recap of the headlines. Bharat Mobility Global Expo 2024 underway here in New Delhi. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to address the India's largest and first of its kind mobility exhibition today. US approves plan for a series of strikes on Iranian targets in Syria and Iraq. Defense Secretary says dangerous moment in the West Asia, reiterates avoidance of wider conflict. And India set to play the second test match against England. Shubman Gill, Shreyas Iyer in focus as India eyes comeback win in Vizag. And moving on, days after Indian Navy warship INS Sumitra intercepted 2 vessels and rescued 2 hijacked vessels from Somali pirates, the Pakistani and Iranian crew of the ships thanked the Indian Navy for saving them from the pirates. The Indian Navy released a video of the anti-piracy operations in the Indian Ocean region. Committed to maritime security in the Indian Ocean region, Indian naval warships mission deployed are ensuring security against all maritime threats, keeping seas safe for mariners of all nationalities. Indian Navy remains committed to maritime security in the Indian Ocean region in keeping with at PMO India's vision of Sagar. Indian naval warship mission deployed in the IOR are ensuring security against all maritime threats, keeping our seas safe for mariners of all nationalities. And boosting trade and regional security in the Indo-Pacific region will be at the top of the agenda when European and Asian leaders meet on Friday. The EU's top diplomat will host foreign ministers of the ASEAN grouping as well as from the Pacific Islands in 2 separate meetings. Ishan Garg tells us more about what to expect from Brussels.
Hosting such a large delegation from Asia is a rare occurrence in Brussels. European Union officials say hosting the ASEAN and the Pacific Island nations at the same time shows the bloc's commitment towards the Indo-Pacific region. Leaders from the east coast of Africa to the Pacific Islands are expected to attend the EU Indo-Pacific ministerial meeting, while the EU-ASEAN summit will include the foreign ministers of Brunei, Myanmar, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam. EU officials say they believe the Asian century has begun, and engaging with players in the Indo-Pacific region has become crucial for trade and defense purposes. The EU and ASEAN have been trying to get a free trade agreement over the line for the past decade. Analysts say both blocs are looking to reduce their dependence on the Chinese economy and could now be closer to a deal finally. Officials say the bulk of the conversation between EU officials and leaders from ASEAN and the Indo-Pacific is going to focus on growing trade and investment in the region. The leaders will also assess common security issues. Those could include China's alleged aggression in the South China Sea and political tensions in Taiwan. EU officials told us that the bloc is hoping to pitch itself as a reliable defense partner with no hidden agendas. The meetings are also likely to focus extensively on climate change and transitioning to green energy. Pacific Islands and some of the ASEAN nations are among the countries likely to be most impacted by climate change, and Europe says it has the experience and technical expertise which can help these countries prepare better. Ishan Garg in Brussels, reporting for DD India.
And Northern Ireland is set to elect a government on Saturday for the first time in 2 years after the British Parliament agreed to revamp post-Brexit trade rules to break a political stalemate. In a historic first, Irish nationalists, Sinn Féin, are set to take the First Minister role after securing the most seats in the British region's 2022 election. Northern Ireland has been without a devolved government since the pro-British Democratic Unionist Party walked out in protest over the post-Brexit trade rules, which it said created barriers with the rest of the United Kingdom and undermined Northern Ireland's place in it. The deal represents a political win for British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, who managed a breakthrough that eluded his predecessor Boris Johnson and helps draw a line under years of wrangling over Northern Ireland's post-Brexit trading arrangements. And now weather updates from across the globe. The Argentina experiencing heat wave at a time when it was supposed to be their winter. With temperatures rise towards 40 degrees Celsius, residents seeked respite from the oppressive heat and communal showers became a haven. Hundreds of people flocked to rivers and doused themselves under colorful showers to contend with the heat. Meanwhile, red alert was issued across the country. On the other hand, Catalonia residents face severe water usage restrictions amid the region's worst drought, with bans on car washing and filling swimming pools, as reservoirs plummet to around 16% of its capacity, impacting approximately 6 million people in 200 urban areas, including Barcelona. The measures aim to alleviate the crisis. Water levels at Sau Reservoir have dropped dramatically, revealing typically submerged ruins. Officials consider alternative water transport, with Barcelona potentially facing shipments in case of water scarcity. The local government insists on reducing water usage by 5% and up to 80% for farmers, with potential for further tightening of restrictions. Permitted daily water usage is reduced to 200 litres per person, down from 210 litres.
I have never seen it like this. It has decreased a lot. You could see the bell tower of the church all the way to the cemetery, but now you see, and the smell of rotten mud. I don't know how we will end up.
And a storm in Gun moved north. The Norwegian police cordoned off the center of the coastal town of Bodø, advising residents to stay indoors. The storm set a new record for average wind speed in Norway, reaching 54.4 meters per second. It has battered large parts of the country, leading to cancelled ferries, closed roads and damage to the buildings. After hitting southern and central Norway, the storm moved north overnight, prompting police to ask inhabitants to stay home for their safety.
Now we have closed off the center of Bodø because of the storm. There was a lot of wind down there, probably more than up here. So now we are closing off so that people don't go to the city center and get hit by debris. We have heard rumors that hotels are starting to let loose some of their windows, roof tiles and wall tiles. So it's a bit exciting down there.
Meanwhile, floods hit Peru as rivers overflow from heavy rainfalls, emerging streets and causing home damage. The Tiambra River floods a sport field in Junín, destroying basketball and football fields, with houses and crops affected. In Catamarca, residents use plastic containers to clear muddy waters from their homes. The Peruvian National Meteorological and Hydrological Service warns that a coastal El Nino phenomena will persist until late summer, resulting in the ongoing impact.
Están ayudando a sacar el agua que se ha.
And the first of two back-to-back atmospheric rivers drenched California on Thursday, flooding roads and toppling trees, while triggering statewide storm preparations and calls for people to get ready for powerful downpours, heavy snow and damaging winds. Heavy rain and gusty winds that began hitting the San Francisco Bay Area on Wednesday moved south and arrived in Los Angeles in time to snarl the Thursday morning commute. The Weather Service issued a flood watch into Friday morning for the Bay Area and the Central Coast closed because of possible flooding of rivers, streams, some roads and areas scarred by previous wildfires. Forecasters also said the Central Coast could see waves up to 18 feet high on Friday and Thursday.
Thank you.
And back home, as the fresh spell of snowfall continued in India's Gulmarg, a white blanket of snow covered the tourist destination on 31st of January. World-famous tourist destination Gulmarg, renowned for its breathtaking landscapes, recently witnessed a mesmerizing snowfall after facing a long dry spell. The snow-laden trees and glistening slopes added charm to the destination, creating a picturesque scene for the tourist. Tourists were seen enjoying the snow-clad winter wonderland. And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. The Archive of Contemporary Music and its 3 million sound recordings is presently set up at an unlikely location of a colorful orange and white building in rural New York, formerly used for raising pigs. With a goal to preserve 2 copies of every recording ever made, one to be used as a listening copy and a second as an archival copy, ARC envisions becoming a public research. Tesla opened its first South American store this week, displaying its sleek electric vehicles in Chile's capital, Santiago. Chile has a target to sell only electric vehicles by 2035. Tesla has retail outlets in Mexico but had yet to expand into South America, according to its website. The company hosted a launch event on Thursday at the new Santiago store that attracted fans of the high-end auto known for its autopilot features. Russian President Vladimir Putin joined school children in singing the national anthem during a youth convention in Moscow on Thursday. Movement of the First was formed and created in 2008, aimed at preparing children and youth for a full-fledged life in society. Putin also signed a plastic cartoon figure during the event. A 20-year-old song from Chile called "Doo" has gone viral in Japan, taking its singer by surprise. In 2003, 5-year-old Crystal Rodriguez performed a hit song "Doo" in a talent show on a local TV channel. Recently, the song has garnered a new lease of life thanks to streaming and social media. Earlier this month, it reached #1 on Spotify's viral top 50 in Japan. And a mesmerizing ice palace is currently in the process of being constructed for the upcoming Saranac Lake Winter Carnival in 2024. This frosty marvel, a time-honored tradition, stands as the focal point of the annual festivities. In recent times, the intricate structures have been skillfully crafted by the talented residents of Saranac Lake, adding a personalized touch to the frosty spectacle. And still to come on DD India News Hour. Amid Ferrari's latest attempt to reignite their Formula One World Championship ambitions, Hamilton is set for a shock switch from Mercedes to Ferrari in 2025. The executive chef for Paris 2024 Olympic Games, Charles Gouloy, is all set to head 300-strong team tasked with feeding people from 206 countries. And we'll show you images of a curious panda cub exploring how doors work.
Why is the world preparing for a second Trump presidency? connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India. Why is the world preparing for a second Trump presidency? I connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
In a world that never stops, where information shapes our reality, one app stands out, helps you stay ahead of time. Introducing the DD India app, your gateway to a world of news right at your fingertips. Your most trusted source of news goes global, goes digital. Explore a world of options, top stories, live updates, in-depth analysis, and more. Stay informed wherever you are. Real-time alerts keep you ahead of the curve always. The DD India app, connecting you to the world one story at a time. Download now and explore the world of knowledge, insights, and authentic information.
Welcome to Rajasthan, the celebration of India. Rajasthan treats you with its many shades and values.
Welcome back. You're watching the India News Hour. Lepakshi Khurana, and on to market news. U.S. stocks rebound on Thursday, recovering from a brutal sell-off as the Wall Street seems to have come to terms with Federal Reserve signals of a delay in rate cut. The Fed held steady on rates but signaled that a March cut is unlikely. The 30-stock Dow added 369.54 points to close at 38,519.84. It was a fresh record close for the blue chip index, which also wiped its losses from a day earlier. The S&P 500 added 1.25% to 4,906.19. The Nasdaq Composite gained 1.3% to finish the session at 15,361.64. For now, the Wall Street has adjusted its expectations on the Fed's rate cut plans. And in Argentina, police clashed with protesters in the Argentine capital, Buenos Aires, for the second consecutive day on Thursday as lawmakers debated an economic reform bill known as the Omnibus Bill. The Argentine lower chamber was debating the bill proposed by Libertarian President Javier Milei to overhaul the South American country's economy. Milei faces a major challenge to push the bill through, which his coalition only having a minority in both chambers, which means he has to win over allies. The Omnibus Bill contains hundreds of articles which, if passed, will usher in sweeping free market reforms. And the International Monetary Fund in Egypt are in the very last stretch of negotiations to augment the country's $3 billion IMF loan program to ease pressures from the conflict in Gaza. IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said on Thursday in Washington that a staff negotiating mission to Cairo has been extended to work out details to implement reforms agreed by Egypt. This would include reforms of its central bank to move over time to inflation targeting in setting monetary policy. And you're watching DD India News Hour. Time now for some sports news. Depleted Team India is all set to lock horns with England in the second test at Visakhapatnam from Friday. India will be gunning to bounce back after they lost the first test by 28 runs, despite taking a first innings lead of 196 runs. England stunned India courtesy of marathon innings by Ollie Pope and 7-wicket haul by Tom Hartley in second innings. Big setback came for India when Jadeja and KL Rahul were also sidelined due to injury. Kuldeep Yadav is set to replace Jadeja, while there is a toss-up between Rajat Patidar and Sarfaraz Khan for KL Rahul's spot. England have announced they're playing 11 ahead of the match, making 2 changes. Uncapped spinner Shoaib Bashir comes in as a replacement for the injured Jack Leach, while the veteran James Anderson has replaced express pacer Mark Wood in the team. An Indian shooter, Akhil Shiorin, won his second career individual medal at the International Shooting Sport Federation World Cup in Cairo. The Paris Olympic quota winner clinched the men's 50-meter rifle 3 positions bronze. Akhil shot 451.8 points in the 8-man 45-shot final after qualifying in second place with a score of 589 points. Jiří Privtsky of the Czech Republic won gold with 462.9 points, while France's double junior world champion Romain Offerere bagged silver after finishing with 460.5 points. The effort meant that India concluded its engagement at the World Cup stage with medals of every section. And 7 times Formula One world champion Lewis Hamilton is set for a shock switch from Mercedes to Ferrari in 2025 as replacement for Spanish driver Carlos Sainz, according to multiple media reports on Thursday. It means Hamilton, 39, would team up with Charles Leclerc with the Italian team, announcing a week ago that the Monegasque had signed on for several more seasons. The move would be Ferrari's latest attempt to reignite their Formula One World Championship ambitions. The most famous team in the sport, but Ferrari have not had a world champion since Kimi Raikkonen in 2007, and the last Constructor Championship was claimed in 2008. And as the sporting community gears up for the Paris Olympics, we take a look at what's on menu cards for athletes who will be participating in this year's Summer Games. The executive chef for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games, Charles Gouloy, is all set to welcome the world at his table. A total of 550 dishes will be served to the 15,000 athletes at the Paris Olympics, which is scheduled in the month of July and August. More on this report.
Chef Charles Gouloy's lentil dal is one of the 550 dishes that will be served to the 15,000 athletes at the Paris Olympics, where up to 40 tons of food will be cut up and cooked daily with regard to many different tastes and cultures. Gouloy, chef executive of Sodexo Live, the company in charge of delivering meals 24/7 in Athletes Village, just north of Paris, will head a 300-strong team tasked with feeding people from 206 countries. Sodexo Live has provided meals for athletes at the French Open tennis as well as those at the French National Institute of Football. Gouloy is all ready to welcome the world as he chopped onions and garlic before roasting kurkuma, ginger and a mix of spices, key ingredients in his dal, made with French green lentils instead of red lentils.
We are going to make a green lentil dal, locally sourced green lentils, which will be served with a skyr, a rich in protein yogurt, a coriander and a lime skyr, and we will have a little corn oil to add a little crunch.
He added that 25% of ingredients used in the preparations of the meals would be locally sourced. On top of that, a bakery will open and athletes will be invited to workshop to make their own baguettes.
This is not a menu. We are really dealing with a colossal task with 550 recipes over the period of the games. And of course, when coming up with these 550 recipes, we have taken into account the different intolerances and allergies, the ethnic, cultural and religious cuisines. These are things that we have taken into account, along with gluten-free, lactose-free products, and of course, halal and kosher. These are all the things you will find in the Olympic Village to answer the needs of athletes.
To provide all the meals, Galois said 1,000 people would work around the clock at the village. Some 40 different dishes for about 40,000 meals served will be on offer every day. A nutritionist will be deployed to help athletes who don't have the means to hire their own. The service will start on July 10, 16 days before the Olympic Games begin, and will end on September 12, 4 days after completion of the Paralympics. Abhishek's Prasad's report for DD India.
And then daring footage of not yet 1-year-old giant panda cub was seen trying to work out how to operate the door to its enclosure in southwest China's Sichuan province. The video was released by a research base working in protecting and breeding giant pandas, red pandas and other endangered wild animals unique to China. Well, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Lipakshi Khurana from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India News Hour.